Hello, everybody. How's it going? So today I'm doing an interview with Elisha, and we are going to be talking about polarity. Now, she specifically wanted to do this as a live kind of debate because I think she has some points to raise about polarity. And she was looking for like a polarity coach, polarity influencer, maybe like a men's coach or something. And so I do a little bit of that stuff. I definitely have experience of using polarity in relationships. I have maybe different opinions than other people, but also as a monk, professional counselor. And so this is going to be a very interesting thing, especially I have no idea how she defines feminist. She says she's a feminist author. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. So I'm going to wait for her to come on, and we're going to do it. And also, maybe you're seeing this video, we're going to put it on YouTube as an interview on YouTube too. So if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, hello. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, then hello. Okay, so I'm waiting for Elisha to come here. I definitely don't see her yet. So I'll just wait until she gets here. Here's what I can say about polarity. So my experience of polarity is that it definitely creates a strong sexual tension, and that a lot of modern relationships especially are missing that because men get feminized by society and women get masculinized by society, right? And so they end up not knowing how to talk to each other, and women sometimes grow up very scared of the masculine. Men have a hard time being in their true masculine, and women have a very tough time being in the true feminine. And so men end up either in like a wounded masculine or in a very weak state or in a feminine state, and women end up in a very weak feminine state or in a masculine state. And very few find the harmony and the balance of being integrated. And so that's my opinion. And I'm waiting for Elisha. If you're here, you have to like come into the room. You have to like click on the live and then request to join. Okay, so hopefully you'll do that. And yeah, so a lot of times when it comes to dating, for someone who wants to date, it is helpful to know about the tools of polarity, because essentially, oh, there she is. Okay, send invite. All right, Elisha, let's get you on here. Hello, Brian. Elisha, hi. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you, John.
You too. Yeah, nice to meet you. So yes, we're here. Tell us, what was your intention of this interview?
I guess I want to get to the bottom of this whole polarity thing. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm trying to post the link to the event. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay. That it should be, so anyone can join, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah.
So there's been this polarity thing has been a really hot topic lately.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for us to sort of define our terms and talk about what it really is. It's been a huge kind of theme, and the men's movement has really been growing. It's becoming a huge factor, and so I think it's good to just sort of have discussions about these things and build coalitions between women's movements and men's movements.
Totally. So yeah, let's define some terms then. How would you define some of these ideas?
So polarity, I think, is the dynamic attraction between men and women, that kind of sexual attraction, romantic attraction. And, I'm a Tantra coach, and I've spent a lot of time at Tantra school.
Cool.
And I also, I'm really into energy and Kundalini energy. So it's that sort of dynamic, pole shift, the feeling that men and women have for each other.
Yeah. Cool. I
you?
practice Buddhist Tantra.
Cool.
It's, for a long time. So it's a little bit different. And, but Kevin, welcome. And Roberta, welcome. So yes. Okay. I'd love to hear more.
Well, first tell me how you see it.
Okay. About polarity. Yeah, I agree with you that it's a very much a sexual attraction thing. it creates a really beautiful sexual dynamic. I
Yeah.
mean, men feel more natural when they're in their giving mode, right? And women feel more natural, I think, when they're in the receiving mode, I believe. And so puts, it kind of sets that right, where men are focused on what they're giving, they're focused on the other person, the woman's focused on receiving. Um, and so I think that for somebody who is looking for strong sexual tension, sexual vibes, and they want to get that right, polarity does work. In my opinion, though, and Johnny, welcome, um, there are higher modes of practice, right? It's not a path to enlightenment, right? The normal polarity teachings are not a path to enlightenment. I think that we should be friends with our partners and treat them really kindly. And I feel that for couples who are optimizing for sexual tension and sexual dynamics, then polarity is good. And if you want that plus more, then you could learn the tools, but then you want to include more enlightened ways of thinking. That's what I think.
Well, I totally agree with everything you said there in that last part. We should obviously treat everyone with kindness and respect, but especially somebody we're making love to. I have found that it's maybe there are more women who feel more comfortable in the receptive role. Some people call it top and bottom. The top is the person who's doing more of the giving, as you say, or maybe more in the admiring role, whereas the bottom is the person who's being admired, the admiree, and maybe is more on the receiving role of some of that sort of affection and attention. Um, and I think there's a lot of people now who, based on the dating apps, who are switches, who go back and
Yeah.
forth between those two roles.
Okay.
And myself, like I would say I'm about a 70% receiver. But I do feel really comfortable in the giving role. And so I tend to be attracted to men who are about, the opposite, like a 30%
Yeah.
receiver. And I have found enormous amounts of polarity in those roles as well,
Okay.
especially with, with men who really want to explore the receiving side and who find it to be, very soothing to be admired, a real boost for the ego, really like to, not have to be in charge and have someone else be in charge. I found an enormous amount of polarity in that role as well. And
Cool. Okay.
yeah, so I think, and I think for me, like I can I can be into playing submissive, like it feels like a game that I'm playing, and it can be really exciting and fun for a second.
Okay.
And then, but it feels like I'm playing a game. Like I'm not a submissive person. Like
Mm.
that's not my personality at all. So
Mhm.
then after that game, I'd rather play another one. Whereas if it's always like the man is dominant and I'm submissive, like that relationship is going to end quickly because it just gets boring.
Yeah, for you. I get it. Yeah, and I think yeah, that's really interesting. And we have Brianna and CH on. Welcome everybody. That's so cool. I mean, yeah, I don't have that much experience with that. I mean, usually I attract women who just like want the masculine side, and I've learned to just like get into my masculine side, and I've been rewarded more for that by society. I think I have both. I've had to embrace. I think this is the key for me is like embrace all parts of yourself, right? I've had times where I kind of rejected my masculine side, and I had times where I rejected my feminine side. And in both cases, the key for me was just accept what's there. It's really there. It's a part of me. And I just have to accept it, embrace it, and then it becomes integrated. And then I attract people who are also integrated. As you say, you attract people who are similar. Um, for example, one time I was very lonely. I was not um, in the best place of my life, but I really wanted a female partner. I had been disrobed. I used to be a Buddhist monk, right? So I was celibate for 5 years. And after that period, I went through some stuff, and I was at a place where I was like, okay, I want a real serious, partnership. I want a feminine woman, but I was rejecting my feminine side, and I wouldn't let it in. And I actually had the belief that if I don't have the feminine, I'll actually be a better match for someone who is feminine, and that we would balance each other out. But it didn't work. And as soon as I just like gave up, I just had a moment where I just kind of gave up. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll never have a partner. Maybe I'll never get to do this. And I can, you know what? I can be happy. I can be happy like that. And I just embraced all parts of me. And right after that, I met a wonderful person, and we had like a 2 or 3 year great relationship. And we practiced polarity in that relationship too, and it was nice. But yeah, little story there.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, I would not necessarily agree that um, being being in a dominant role, being in a leadership role, is anything connected with masculinity. So maybe
Okay.
this would be a good time to define what you think masculinity and femininity are
Mm,
to you, but at a like deep level. So like,
mm,
you know, not just culturally, but based on our biology, based on our true nature,
okay.
what masculine and feminine are.
It's a really good question. My only understanding that works for me is that when I'm integrated and whole within myself, because of my biology and the way that I'm wired, I express as masculine when I'm balanced on the inside. So I sort of recognize the difference between the inner and the outer. And for me, when I'm inwardly balanced and whole, because of just who I am, I express naturally as masculine. Like people will say that about me or whatever, but it's not because I'm trying to be masculine. I'm just being I'm just being myself, and that's what emanates. And I think that is the same for a woman. I think, I could be wrong, but when a woman is balanced and whole, like you see a lot of spiritually integrated women who do this, they're balanced, they're whole. They're connected to both sides of them on the inside, but they express as feminine on the outside, not because they want to, that's just what happens. And people might say, oh, they're feminine, but people who only have one side or the other don't, they're not usually that admirable, right? We usually don't want to be around someone who's just feminine. They're going to be like the chaos, or the person who stays in bed and they can't even like move, right? Or the masculine, like they're in their head, or they're just too forceful. They get burned out. And so anyway,
But what, so I would definitely disagree that I don't think that the feminine equates with chaos or being in bed. I don't think the masculine equates with logic. I mean, you know, that's a very cultural thing to believe that. So, so when you're saying, I totally agree that being well balanced is what we're all striving for, so that we can, you know, if we don't have a partner to do things for us, we can get everything done in our life, whether we need to, you know, do construction or, you know, take care of a child. But how would, when you say you feel masculine, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that
well,
feel like? What are those qualities
I
or traits?
suppose like if I were to summarize what it really means, it's just functional. Masculine is functional, and it's doing. It's a functional state. Men are very functional, and we get graded and judged on how we function in society. No one cares about a man like who you are. It's more like, what do you do? And the more you do, the better you become. And so I think men who want to improve their masculine side need to get into action and use their hands, and and just become more functional, right? I feel like there's some men use men. The masculine side is more. You said that it's not logical. I mean, I do feel that that's generally a quality that we may say. It's more. Men are more interested in and more focused on external things, and there's like a tantric explanation for this, and women are more focused on internal things. They're focused on their subjective state of being. If you were to go to ask a woman and a man who went to the same conference, for example, how was it, how is it that day, a woman is going to tell you all the things she felt, and a man's going to tell you all the things that happened, right? Neither are good or bad. It's just that's what we're focused on. And so the women are just more in touch with their subjective experience. um, yeah. Does that answer your question?
So there are some studies that do show sort of what you're talking about, that women are more, women tend to be interested in people and men tend to be more interested in things. And we don't really know how much of that is culturally determined. We know that we have enormous amount of conditioning from patriarchy for the past 5,000 years that have encouraged women to be in touch with their emotions. We also know that men are more like baby boys and children. Boys are more sensitive and on every level, more tuned into the mother, more tuned into others. So we could assume that as time goes on, women are more conditioned to be more, are encouraged to be more in touch with their emotions. So we don't really know. It's impossible to tease out patriarchal conditioning from what our inner state is. But I tend to believe that even after we heal from patriarchy and we're treated the same as we're growing up, men are going to be better at spatial tasks, reading maps, technical stuff, and women are going to be like three-dimensional stuff, things that involve strength. Men are definitely physically stronger, working with technical things, building bridges, I think are all good roles for men. And women have a huge edge in verbal stuff, learning languages, writing, teaching, and leadership, because leadership is really about building coalitions, resolving conflict, working with people. And so if women are better at more interested in other people, then we would expect to see, once we heal from patriarchy, a lot more women in leadership roles, because the studies clearly show that women as CEOs and governors lead to happier outcomes amongst the people, as well as higher bottom lines, because women tend to be less corrupt, tend to lead more out of a sense of responsibility as opposed to a sense of wanting to dominate others or get resources. So those are some of the...
No, I agree. I feel like women are better generally at focusing on multiple things. And there's just this motherly superpower. You can handle things, you can nurture things. I can tell you, men are more simple, we're more focused. Men thrive generally when we're focused on one thing and we can follow it through and we can get obsessed and we can do nothing else. That is so supportive. And you hear a lot of men who are coaches and stuff talk about that, but like, I think that that's a good advice for men. I don't think that women need to follow that advice as much. Women can handle all the stuff. It takes a very different kind of man to be able to do that. And
I agree with you.
I would say, like, I lived at a temple in the middle of the woods for 5 years in like a bubble. And so and because of the meditations and all that stuff, like I deconditioned myself like an insane amount. Like literally, I changed my name, I changed my appearance, I wore robes, I shaved my head. Like I had a new name. I was off social media. I had no technology for a while. Like I was completely plunked out, right? And then I kind of came back in, and so I really got to see what I'm like without conditioning, and I'm very masculine when I'm not in conditioning. And so, but it's not because I want to be or because society told me to be. It's just how I am. It's just energy. And so I actually feel a lot of people say that society dictates human nature. I actually believe that a lot of our biology is what influences society in the first place. So we point the finger at society and we say, oh, it's society's fault for this. But where did society start? It started with people and human nature, and you put people together, and this is how we operate. And also, as I said, there's a tantric explanation. So we have subtle channels in our body, the subtle body, and the left channel is associated with the mental states there are more focused or more identified with things outside ourselves. And that's generally the masculine channel where men get aroused, and that's where sperm is and so on. And then the right channel is more associated with subjective. It identifies with the subjective states of mind, the mental states associated with everything, right? And so we put our eye on the emotions. I feel this, I am this. And that's generally that's also the channel of speech, right? And so that's generally where women get aroused. Not all the time and everybody, but like generally. And so you can see this in society. Women have more of a tendency to want to share their feelings. Men don't have the same need to share their feelings. We want to talk about stuff. And women want to talk about feelings because we're not all the time, but we hang out in those channels a little bit. So there is like a biological subtle explanation for that. And I feel that society just ripples out from who people are. That's what I think.
Well, that's not biological. What you're describing could be fully cultural, because, like I said, men are actually more sensitive as infants and children, and they're strongly discouraged from talking about their feelings. Girls are strongly encouraged to talk about our feelings. So we don't really know, how much is biology. I mean, we have some of these spiritual systems which mostly arose from patriarchy, although Tantra has a background in pre-patriarchal systems, so South India. And, that's why some of the earliest tantric texts don't talk about penetration, but more as the woman, the female engulfing the male. But we know that if we're going to talk about biology, we have to look at cultures beyond our own. So our own is the result of 5,000 years of patriarchy. But if we look at anthropology, we look at so many other cultures where the men are the ones who get dressed up and act coy and dance for the women. In matriarchal cultures or matrilineal cultures, in which the women are sort of at the center and we pass property from mother to daughter, older women are the ones who are, tend to be more attractive to people. And we have an entirely different society, operates on an entirely different way. Women aren't seen as submissive in any way. Women are leaders. Women are seen as extremely competent, are in charge of resources. Men aren't seen as providers. The whole clan provides, and women are in charge of resources because they're not seen as subjective creatures. They're seen as very competent creatures. I mean, even in our own culture, right? Like poor women have always done most of the work, and in a lot of tribal societies and clan societies, that this idea that men do things and women contemplate our navels, that doesn't actually hold up cross-culturally. And if we're going to talk about biology, like, I'm for everyone having a choice. You can create whatever kind of relationships you want and whatever role for yourself you want. But if we're going to talk about what's our core biology, we have to look at all the cultures of the world. And as of 200 years ago, before most tribal cultures got assimilated or destroyed, most were matrilineal cultures. And, in those, women, were at the center of society and were in leadership roles and were seen at, and women have been able to do every function as well as men, whether it's chemist, biologist, physicists. Women have excelled at those as well as men, despite the enormous obstacles and prejudice that we faced.
Okay. I mean, I don't really get, that. I feel like, why would there be a patriarchy in place if it wasn't for people putting it in place? Right? Why would it even be in place? And I think that people have a tendency to do certain things, and then things are created. I don't see it as an object of blame.
Oh, no.
I mean,
I never speak about blame.
Okay.
I don't blame anyone. The reason why patriarchy arose starting around the 4th millennium BC was due to trauma. There was an extreme desertification event. The whole Middle East, North Africa, desertified very quickly. And in times of trauma and resource scarcity, there's a tendency to, to sort of hoard resources, which was at that time herds. So cows and herds. And once you hoard resources, then a strong, aggressive male tends to rise to power and hoard the resources. So in times of resource abundance, we're egalitarian. Back when we were egalitarian, women were there was no male dominance. There was no classes of people dominating over others. There was no war. Everything was peaceful. There was no environmental destruction. And then in times of trauma and scarcity is when patriarchy arises. So it's a trauma response, not our natural response. And then once it does happen,
trauma response. I don't know if I see that. I don't know if it's just because it's a response to a difficulty doesn't make it a trauma response, right? If someone were to break into my house, I can respond as a protector, not out of trauma or fear of any kind. It could be simply a good-hearted feeling.
I'm just talking about this particular desertification response that led to the rise of patriarchy.
Well, I think that you're assuming. I think that you're assuming that just because it was difficult, that it was traumatic, and just because the response was masculine, that it was somehow destructive. Maybe it was protective.
It has been destructive. I mean, we've seen the rise of war, genocide, environmental destruction. All of those things go hand in hand with the institution of patriarchy. Not blaming men. It was it's an institution.
How could it be an institution? I just don't understand how it could be institution. I mean, men are more the tip of the spear, right? We're initiators. So if a tribe of men are attacking your tribe, the men are going to stand against them because we can, right? And so I don't see how it's an institution. It could just be a natural response. If men are creating havoc in the world, then other men have to try to stop it or protect themselves or protect
That's
their
true.
women, right?
That's exactly true. All right, so don't call it an institution, call it a system. It's a system that's maintained by both men
But
and
who
women. So
agrees on
women,
the system? Where is it? I don't see it. Like, what if it's just a natural thing for men to be responsive to difficulties? Men are more able to rise to physical challenges better, I think.
men are stronger and more aggressive. Those are that's biology.
We
That's
have a
economic.
we have extremely high tolerance for pain and violence as well. And so
Exactly.
we
That's
we
true.
can, we're very functional in physical difficulty. It's not just strong.
That's right.
Our bodies are actually built for
Exactly.
lifting and things like that.
Yes, exactly. Which is why we should have more women in leadership roles so that we tend to go away from violence
I agree with you.
because we don't want violence. Violence isn't good. Like, and so before there was violence and war, before 5,000 years ago, we didn't need this aggressive response. But once there, like you said, once there's one aggressor, once there is aggression, we need to respond to that. So we need to have a
Yeah.
professional class
I
of warriors to deal with aggressors. But we agree that like what we actually want is peace, right? We don't
Right.
want people
No,
dying.
I agree with you. No, I love a bunch of things you're saying. Like in times of peace, women are more active. Women should be more in charge of people. You know, one of my favorite mentors is a woman who is the CEO and COO of a great company. Like, yeah, women are extremely good in these roles, and men need to put them in charge because things will go better. Definitely, I totally agree. And you're right that when everything's protected, then that sort of stuff can happen. Like women can function
Yes.
inside the male
Yes.
sort of container, right? But
Yes.
if you think about the functional aspects of how do you create peace, it's probably because there's a tribe of men who figure out how to either be bigger and stronger so no one challenges you, or just have enough protection so that in case people try, you can stop it, right? And so, like, yeah, peace
Yes.
and war are going to be dictated by a lot of times by men, and the male container is what creates the ability for women to thrive inside of it, and then everybody thrives. Do you agree?
I mean, I think there should be a class of people who protect society from aggressive warlords, and that container can allow for peace to thrive. But I think women should be in charge of deciding, when that has to happen to avoid the male violent tendency from sort of dictating that and creating aggressive responses where as opposed to defensive responses.
Yeah. Look, I have a theory. This is might be a fun place to share it with you. Tell me what you think.
Okay.
I might be labeled as wrong or whatever for this theory. My theory is that if all the women today were put in charge of the whole world, literally, it's just like, boom, women are in charge. I bet you if they were to talk amongst themselves, they would quickly vote in whoever they feel is the best man to like actually lead.
No, I don't think so.
Because they would defer it. A lot of women have that tendency to like defer. No?
No,
Okay, tell me
like
why.
my women friends don't defer. I never defer. I mean, I defer to somebody when they know something better than me.
Right.
Like when we're talking about plumbing, I don't know shit about plumbing. I'm going to defer to the plumber. If it's something to do
Right,
with
John. Right.
the origins of patriarchy, this is a subject I've been
But
studying for 25 years. I wrote this book before war on marriage, hierarchy, and our
oh yeah,
matriarchal
I
origins.
wanted to ask you about that.
Oh,
Like, how do we
cool.
even know what happened 5,000 years ago? Before that,
So we look at archaeology, anthropology, linguistics, and
there's no
I mean, what?
there's no writing available.
Well, they did have writing. We haven't
Yeah.
deciphered some of the writing from before patriarchy. When we do, all of that will fall into place. But writing is not the only tool that we have to look at the past. Like I said, we have archaeology, anthropology, linguistics. Those are the really big ones. And
I
they're
mean,
able to paint. What?
no, I didn't. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay. What did you say? say?
No, well, I just have a couple other points. I mean,
Okay.
I think that as a society, we tend to, um, put on a pedestal a little bit other like ancient tribes or whatever, the Mayans, Incas. But like if you look at a lot of them, they do human sacrifice. They have games where whoever wins the game literally dies.
Sure.
Like,
Well, those were patriarchal peoples within the patriarchal
but I mean,
period of the last 5,000
the
years.
only history we have available is 5,000 years and beyond and up, right? And so like, how do we even know? Like, I don't know if it's possible to have a conversation while we're using the term patriarchy because, you have a lot of
Read the book
stuff
because
about it.
there's thousands of
Like,
data points in there.
where is
And
it? Where
where's
is
it on
patriarchy?
Amazon?
I don't
Oh,
see it.
so, okay. Well, first of all, the fact that every single dollar bill or $10 bill you take out of your wallet has a man's face on it.
Because they're
Like, I don't
the
think,
president.
because they're the president, but why are they always men? Secondly, the
People
fact
voted.
that women take men's names, like that's a very unnatural situation. For most of human life, all of the people that we like at the beginning of writing, all of the women, all the tribes that surrounded the ancient Greeks, for example, the women, it was a women's lineage called matrilineal. It was, I'm the daughter or son of the mother of a mother of a mother, because you always know who your mother is. So it was really when we started tracing descent from father to son that it became a problem, because once you need to know who the father is, then you need to control sexuality. So I'm not saying that men are bad in any way. It's just that the reason why patriarchy is bad is because tracing through the male line means controlling sexuality. And once you control sexuality, you control people, and that leads to authoritarianism. And it also creates a repression of our natural sexual urge, which leads to psychopathology. But we have genetics, and genetics tells us that before patriarchy, it was, women were in like, it was related women remained together instead of women marrying out. So we have genetics, we have linguistics. In the oldest languages, there was no words for things like war or father. There's a whole chapter in the book about linguistics. It's really a huge topic. And we have archaeology, which shows us that there was no war, that men didn't have positions of power, they weren't buried with more grave goods. That all started with the Indo-Europeans and the Semites, who were close to that desert area where this desert trauma occurred. And they then spread it all over the world by means of the horse. And we have their genetics that appear everywhere that their genetics appeared, R1b and R1a haplotypes. We start having war, men buried by themselves with lots of grave goods, and even buried with women as servants. So it was an ideology that spread around the world. And now we're a very much reformed patriarchy. Like, we no longer have to cover our heads. We're able to get credit cards. We're able to own land. Women have rights over our own children. All of these things have only been like within my lifetime that we won these rights. But for most of patriarchy, men had full rights over children. And yeah, we are a reformed patriarchy. But if you don't think we are a patriarchal culture, when do you think we stopped being one? Or do you think there are any other cultures in the world that still are one, like, let's say, in the Middle East?
Uh, no, it's a good point. And Sarah's asking for the title of your book. Could you hold up your book again or say the title?
Thanks for watching the chat.
You're
Before
welcome.
War, on marriage, hierarchy, and our matriarchal
Cool.
origins.
Yeah,
Thank
she
you.
said it sounds amazing and she wants to read
Thanks.
it.
It's pretty entertaining and sexy. There's a whole chapter on sex.
Cool.
But the
So
genetic stuff is the coolest stuff.
now I live in Morocco right now. And
Yeah.
so Morocco is a Middle Eastern culture, basically, even though it's in Africa. And,
Right.
there is mostly Muslim here. Now, women are allowed to show their hair. Like,
Right.
everyone's allowed to do what they want pretty much. But a lot of women do cover up. And it's actually really interesting because men get a lot more respect around here. And men don't have to like do that much to earn their respect. People just think men are great here. People just naturally respect men really much. And for me, it's the
Not
opposite of being in
naturally,
the
because
West.
of culture. right? Because of culture.
Well, naturally, just like it just feels natural, right? It's just happening.
Well,
And so,
it's their culture.
right, right. But that's just how it feels, right? And so that in America, I feel like it's the opposite. Like, you know, I feel like women get put a little bit on a pedestal in America. Everyone's nice. People ignore men. No one really cares about men in America. Like, people who think that men are in charge, it's really just like the top 1% of the 1% of men who have any real power. Most men are very much ignored by society and given very little. We don't have extra rights than anybody else, and we have to work harder. And it's just like, you know, you might
I've
get half
heard
stuff
this
taken.
narrative, but I've never seen any evidence for it. I mean, the
That
studies show
that's
that
men's
in
experience.
movies, what? That's been your experience?
Well, no,
I've had the opposite experience.
I think that's the experience of a lot of men. For example, there's that one woman who like dressed up. She decided, man, to have an easy life. I'm gonna be a man. So she like dressed as a man, and she like was a man for like 2 years, and she actually killed herself because women were so unkind to her, and she was ignored. Men get ignored so hard by women. They get treated really bad, and unless you're like a special man, people not just ignore you, but they give you no love, no affection, and you have to figure everything out. Whereas women are just generally given more kindness, more care, more love. They're not ignored so much. And here it's very different. Like, men sit around in the coffee shops all day, just like no one really wants them to be much. And it's just weird. But I found it really interesting. And I do feel it's the opposite of America, in my opinion.
So
I
I'm
think
sorry
women
that
have
you've had
special.
that experience. I'm really
What?
sorry that you've had that experience
Yeah,
of feeling ignored and disrespected. I've never actually seen that. The
we
studies, there's a book that
haven't
just
been a
came out
man.
showing
You
what?
have
Well, I haven't been a man,
a
but I've
young man.
had the opposite thing. I worked in an all male field. I was a computer programmer. I worked in an all male field. And before that, I was in neuroscience. And in that field, the women were like completely ignored. No woman could get mentored, could get tenure, could get published. It was extremely
Sure.
difficult to get respect. So the studies still show that women are talked over and interrupted much more often than men. Women are shown way less respect. Men still talk in films 3 times as much as women to this day in films. So, and misogyny against women is super rampant. And I wonder, women who like, this is one person's experience dressing up as a man, but like as a woman, as you age, you become completely invisible and ignored and dismissed and condescended to. Women are still condescended. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I was condescended to by a man who expected me to act like a clueless moron. So I think, it goes both ways.
Sure.
I don't,
Nobody
I
has it
can't,
perfect,
nobody
right? Like,
has it perfect.
men get ignored, women as they old, like young men, and then women they're older, maybe they get ignored. Like, yeah, we all have it tough, and like, yeah, we all have it tough. And so I don't
But the
know.
decks are still stacked way against women in terms of the respect we get. Women are still like
I
they've
don't
done
know if that's
studies
true.
where when you read somebody's names in an interview and have people rate how competent they think you are, women are still rated as less competent, still given less opportunities. I mean, there are some big companies where there's some kind of affirmative action, and I'm not for affirmative action. I'm simply for equal opportunity and respect.
For
That's
sure. And I think women have a tendency to like freaking hate men. Like, if you even look at the comments, someone named Roberta is criticizing me right now.
okay. Roberta does hate men.
Some
Roberta
people hate men, and like
Roberta
that thing is,
hates
men
men
are
for
trying
sure.
to be really good people sometimes, and just women have this freaking trigger, and
No,
then they
wait.
complain
No,
that
not
it's
all
not
women
equal.
have a trigger. Roberta happens
No,
to hate men.
no,
She's the
no.
only woman I know who hates men. The only woman I know. I love men
Yeah.
personally.
Men are great.
All, but
Women are
there's
great.
why is it so feminists don't hate men, women don't hate men. There are women out there like Roberta has been seriously hurt by men, seriously screwed over by men. So she's bitter. That's
You can
so
heal
few.
that.
She's the only woman I know,
You can heal
like
that by loving people, not by hating them.
I completely agree, which is why I don't hate men. But I've seen so much misogyny against women. Like, you know, women celebrities have to hire somebody to have like
Oh,
misogynistic comments removed from their feed so that they don't just
okay.
get disturbed and depressed by
But
them.
women can make
Male celebrities don't
thousands
have
of
to.
dollars per month by posting a picture, and men can't. And
But that's
so,
because women have the natural power.
so you're
Because
saying women are better. So why can't men use
no,
our
I
natural
didn't say
power?
that. I
So
said
then why?
women have the natural power of our sexuality, and there's a reason for that, and it's because men are hornier.
Men, no. Well, men have a natural power too, power of speech, power of presence. Why can't we use our natural power? Why do women
We
try
have
to take away a
power of
man's
speech and
power?
power of presence.
Huh?
Also, we have power of speech and power of presence.
I know
We can
everyone's
all use our
special, but I'm
natural power.
saying men have special powers too. And
Like what?
so instead of, I said speech, like lots of things. And
Well, we
so
have those
instead of
things
trying to
too.
take, instead of like looking at somebody who you think is doing better than you and trying to take them down, why not just like admire them and just like appreciate what you have? Women are special in their own ways, and you can utilize it rather than trying to tear down a man. That's not going to help you. Just
Nope, I
appreciate
don't
them,
know
and they're going
anyone
to
who
help you.
tears down men.
Okay.
I mean, that's not what feminism is about. That's like, I know one man hating person, but like, it's not
Oh,
about
I
tearing men
see it all
down.
the time. Like that's you, but you're not a man. I see it every freaking day.
Well,
People
I
in the
see it
West.
every freaking day that men are trying to tear women down. I mean, those red pill groups, their entire strategy of dating, of teaching men how to tear down women's confidence so that we will like be able to be easily controlled. But we
My
both
wife's watching this.
agree.
Hello, Jessica. No, it's both. Like, and so there's counter movements to each other. There's such a strong movement of feminism in the West that men have to like get their defenses up, or else they do get taken advantage of by women. Women try to get their money, they divorce them, they do crazy things. So like men are just trying to get their defenses up. A lot of men are actually really nice people, and then they get used by women, and then they're like, "Crap, I gotta not let this happen again."
I
You have
agree.
to understand,
Don't,
it's
I
both
agree. We need
sides.
to
Both
have
both sides are
boundaries.
hurting each other.
That's right. But women are getting killed and beaten by men. So that's a bit of a more serious issue, you know. But I don't think that men need to respond with defenses. Have boundaries. Be really discerning in the women that you choose.
That's what it is.
Women have not been allowed the same opportunities in life that men have historically, and so, and if we're the ones who are responsible for the kids, then we don't have the same financial opportunities, and that's why the system was created, for men to provide for women if women are going to sacrifice their career opportunities to raise children. There are terrible women who take advantage of men, and vice versa. That has nothing to do with gender. That's just some people are assholes, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel that in some contexts, so for some people, it feels natural for a man to provide, and some women really want that, and it feels natural for a woman to be more nurturing, and a lot of people want that. And so, like,
Mhm.
again, like, I don't think that pointing the finger at society actually really helps. I think it's better to realize society for what it is just the creation of people's natural tendencies over time. And it's not some big scary monster that was created on the outside and put over as like a box. It's just the natural tendencies that people created ourselves. And what I've learned is, yes, I've been hurt by women. Yes, I've probably hurt some people too. And what I've learned is that the only way for anyone to heal is to actually just like, yeah, heal yourself and stop hurting people in any way. And you'll start to attract people who are similar to you who don't hurt anybody. Right. And
I
like,
agree completely.
we have to just do that work. And if we keep pointing the finger outside and saying men are like this, women are like this, it doesn't help anybody. I
I
know.
agree completely. I'm not, I don't make, you know, any, I am not interested in attacking men or blaming men. I am looking at society, however, we do need to look at society and understand the dynamics of this system, because now we're in a situation where we can heal from it. And it is a trauma-based system. We're carrying trauma in our bodies from 5,000 years of domination, oppression, and war. And so by understanding those dynamics, we can heal from them, not by pointing fingers, but by understanding those dynamics and healing them within ourselves. And it starts by healing trauma. because the system is self-perpetuating. So when trauma begets trauma, in the same way that if somebody's abused as a child, they might grow up to abuse somebody else. And so it's just self-perpetuating, including circumcision also perpetuates the trauma. And so these traits just become kind of habits. So call it our habitual systems, you know. So it's not like society is this, it's just like,
Sure.
okay, let's look at this and how do we want to be?
Sure. There's a comment here. Michael says, can y'all discuss the way much of what gets passed as traditional values don't actually go back further than industrialization? So he wants to talk about the history of what effect industrialization has on these so-called traditional values, and what were things like before that. I think you could answer that better than me.
So, I mean, what most people use the word traditional, they actually mean patriarchal. You know, when I use traditional, I actually mean matriarchal, because we were matriarchal for far, far more years than we were patriarchal, and it was a much more stable and peaceful system. But before industrialization, most people lived like on farms, and you know, men and women did whatever they had to do. There was no there wasn't this sort of man the provider thing happening so much. Men and women both busted their ass to feed their families however they had to, and whatever was, you know, probably men did more heavy lifting, and you know,
Probably
but
went out more, right? They
maybe
probably,
went out more, right?
mm,
But with industrialization, we got into this mode where it became this like man goes out and works in the factory and women stays home, which created kind of this whole idea of, you know, man working out more and women staying home. You know.
well, I think that's natural, though. I mean, I feel like it's pretty natural for men to want to leave the home. I don't know. When I hear traditional, I hear natural. I don't think patriarchal or anything. I just think natural. It's just a natural. Not all traditional values are natural, but a lot of them are. They're just natural tendencies. It's more
Well,
safe to
not if
stay at
you
home.
look at humans in general. You can't say something is natural if you're only familiar with your own culture. You have to look at anthropology, and you have to look at the
Well,
thousands of cultures
it,
that have existed
it,
and the
no, I'm
things that
talking about
women have.
natural. I'm talking about natural for like a human. Like I said, I've deprogrammed myself in such a big way. You have no idea. Like meditation on emptiness and 5 years in a monastery will do that, right? And so I'm just talking about natural human qualities. We all have a consciousness, but our consciousness is actually wired to our body differently. A man's mind and body, a man's body obviously is different, but the wiring of consciousness to the body in a man is different. And the wiring of a woman's consciousness to her body is different. And so we just respond differently. And we should just celebrate each other instead of trying to tear each other down to be equal. Why not just celebrate each other? Men want to go out more. Hey, let them go out. Women are like, it's safer. Like a lot of these traditional things are just keep women safe. Women are precious. Men are more expendable than women, actually, right? And men, like all women are valuable for reproduction, but only the best men are valuable for reproduction. And so let men compete against each other. Let men go out and do the things, and then women will protect them. What's wrong with that? It's just a natural instinct that has become part of society, and then we have people labeling it as, oh, that's traditional, or that's cultural, or that's patriarchal. Actually, it's designed to protect and help women. Don't you think?
Well, there's no evidence that before patriarchy, women stayed home. I mean, women
Well,
were involved
well,
in
here's the
long-term
thing.
trade.
I need to stop you on that. Like, we don't even have a history of time before 5,000 years ago. We don't have history. We
Well,
don't know anything. There's
we
no
have
written history.
archaeology. We know that we know what we can now identify skeletons. We can now use genetics to identify what the different sexes were doing, and women were the ones who were making clothes and doing ceramics and doing trading, long distance trading. So you
I mean,
know,
we don't really know. Like, it's just a lot of guesses, right? And Roberta's asking, what are
well,
men protecting women from? I think any threat that could happen outside the home, which there are many, many types of threat that could happen outside the home.
so the whole
Other
idea
men,
of
yeah.
protection, like, is only within the patriarchal time period, because before that there was really nothing to protect women from.
So you're
Because what
saying
men
in a
are
perfect
protecting,
world, we don't need patriarchy, but in an imperfect world, we do. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that that yeah, well, we don't need warriors if there's no violent men to protect them from.
Yeah.
And now we know, this has come out in the last couple of years, that women hunted like men. Women hunted. This whole man the hunter thing is you know, a bias. We now know that women hunted too. So it wasn't necessarily this idea of women being, you know, protected at home while men hunted.
They're commenting on the fact that I interrupted you. Yeah, sorry for interrupting you.
Sorry, I've interrupted you too. I'm sorry for that too.
But no one
Go ahead.
will call you out because I'm a man and men get attacked by women in society. It's just I don't think
And
people
women
realize
get attacked by men in society.
I guess.
Women get.
I mean, you should look at chat forums though. Chat forums. It's insane. Like, I don't think men, there's always news articles about how men, any top man is always getting attacked. Like, they're trying to bring him down all the time.
And women
Right?
get attacked all the time, condescended to in forums. There's rampant misogyny.
Maybe they're
online.
just trying to explain something. How is it condescending if you're just like, here, let me help you with this?
Well, you know,
it's
when
not
you're
always
being
condescending.
condescended to, but in forums, women are attacked constantly. I mean,
Okay.
like, misogyny is alive and well. I can send you, you know, I can post you to tons of forums where that's happening.
We both have it, but like, men don't create a special term to feel like a victim about it.
What, mansplaining?
We don't like bad things happen to men too, but we just don't complain as much.
What? I've seen a lot of complaining. It's been a lot of, oh, men are the victims, da da da. That's been like a huge theme. Women aren't complaining. We're pointing out that there's been massive amounts of disrespect, misogyny, oppression, you know, for thousands of years that we're only now just coming out of.
Yeah, it's a way of getting your needs met, and then other men come to protect you. It's a good system. It actually works really well. I
don't want men to protect me.
Well, then who are you telling? Then why are you telling? Why do people talk about the patriarchy and misogyny if you don't want men to change society?
We want everyone to heal because it benefits men too. Because men are almost as oppressed under patriarchy as women, partly because men are not allowed to express their emotions. They're penalized for being sensitive, and men are sensitive, and men do have emotions. And without being able to talk about their emotions and find friendships with other men, that's why men, you know, have die earlier, is because they don't have those. We all need to be connected with each other. And when we heal from patriarchy, well, first of all, patriarchy is killing the world, like genocide, war, environmental destruction. We all need to heal from it, men and women standing together to heal from it, and it'll benefit all of us because it really oppresses men too.
Yeah, I agree with you. In my opinion, instead of calling it patriarchy, let's call it elitism. Only the people at the very top, who might be a small number of men, are the ones rewarded. Like normal men don't get the perks that women think we do. What advantage does a normal guy have over women other than if he steps into his masculine, he suddenly gets attacked by everybody?
So many advantages,
like
especially
what?
In dating. Like, well, first of all, men can wear more comfortable clothes. They're not constantly criticized.
Women
for
love
looking...
wearing stretchy clothes. Are you kidding me?
Know what we would love if we weren't pressured to be sexy.
Come on, that is
so
not
women
even...
are what? Well, no, we don't know what we would be like if we weren't pressured to be sexy. We have to wear these things. We have to wear makeup. We're criticized for looking too sexy. We're not looking sexy enough. We're totally dismissed and disregarded as we age. Men are, you know, we're still not paid the same. We're disrespected. We're still not given the same opportunities, but mostly we're not raised to believe that we could achieve the same things, and that creates a certain insecurity.
Is that even true? I don't know if that's true. How could that possibly be true?
Well, it's just a habit. And so that's all I'm saying. I'm not attacking anyone or blaming anyone. I'm pointing, and all of this stuff is in my book, so you can find all this evidence in my book. All I'm saying is that men and women, I hope, stand together to just look at our true past and look at the dynamics of this system, which is basically all about competition and violence instead of cooperation, and stand together because we don't want war. We don't want bombs dropping on babies.
So I just have a question. I think there's a chicken and egg thing. So we're saying like, so women are more in charge in times of peace, right? And we're kind of blaming men for the fact that there's war.
We're not blaming men.
Okay. So I think that when men get really strong, we can actually, like when good men get strong, we can prevent war, and then we can hold space for women to thrive, and then society thrives. I think it's about good men getting more empowered, because good men can stop other men better than anybody else, right?
And so that we all should be empowered to stand up against aggressive, dominating men. And
but how are women going to?
What?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Just for all of us to be empowered to elect the leaders who lead out of responsibility instead of out of domination, and just stand up to dominating douchebags and you know, stand for peace and unity.
Yeah, everyone should be empowered, 100%. I think that society has separated men from their masculinity and women from their femininity. And so that is the reason for the problem. They're both equally happening. And if we both just return to our natural state, we will be in more harmony. I think that the society is just a reflection of where we're at in ourselves. And if we can be harmonious within ourselves and whole, we will act right and we'll treat other people really well. And if everybody does that, we'll have a great society.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Do you want to end on that note? It's been an hour.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. It's going to get dark here really fast.
Okay.
Thank you. This was really fun.
It was.
Did we?
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you. Did we cover the topics that you wanted to cover?
Oh, I could talk about a million different things.
Okay.
But, you know, I think I see Stephen Lawrence says we need strong men. Yes, I totally agree. But we need strong women too. We need everyone to be strong.
For sure.
Because weak people is what allows oppression to thrive. Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah.
Totally. I had no idea we're going to talk about patriarchy. I wasn't prepared for that. I don't really think about that term ever. And so I didn't know how to really add to that conversation. I tried though. But anyway, thank you. Maybe we could do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for everyone watching. And could you hold up your book again so people can.
Thank you. And if do you want to like talk about what your offerings are first?
No, you go ahead.
So it's Before War on Marriage, Hierarchy, and Our Matriarchal Origins. And it's that's a Minoan, that's a fresco from ancient Minoan civilization, which the Minoan civilization was the most advanced civilization that we know of. They had flushing toilets 3,000 years ago, and women were completely in charge. And there was they didn't like wage war against each other, and they had an extremely, you know, they had like heated water, running water, and, you know, magnificent palaces. It was a beautiful example of a female-centric civilization that really thrived.
That sounds really good. Yeah, and if anybody here, if you're interested in what I do, you know, this video is going to go on my YouTube channel, and you can find more cool stuff there. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.